Okay.
I'm walking.
Soil class, we're gonna start with the first thing that you do, and this is how to fill out a soil test. Or this is what the form looks like. Or maybe I should back up and say, this is the tool that we use to take the samples. And so we have something that's about, what, half inch, 3/4 inch?
Yeah.
Because we want 1 to 6 inches for normal soil test. So if you don't have something like this, I mean, you could make something like this, or you can take a bulb trowel. So you have narrow and skinny, because you want to have a soil profile. And with this little tool, you want to scrape off things that are on the top and twist it down, push, pull it out. And when you get it out of the ground, then any roots, trash, or whatnot, you pull that off and put the rest in a bucket. Do at least 6 or 8 places, because you want a sampling of your whole area. If there's a spot that is obviously much better or worse, probably leave that out. And if it's worse, probably sample that one by itself. Because I've had some places where nothing would grow, and maybe the pH is really, really high, the organic matter is really, really low, or there could be some other thing, and so you would want to sample that by itself. So then you take everything you have in the bucket and thoroughly mix it together, and you pull out 1.5 cups and put in a Ziploc bag. You want to air dry it before you seal it. You don't want it in the oven. We just want to fluff it until it's reasonably dry, okay? Make sure you put your name on it and what it is, the garden, the lawn, east side, west side, whatever the world it is. And then we're gonna prepare the paperwork. And this is a soil submittal form. When you go to Midwest Labs, at the top of the home page, it will say submittal forms. So it's right on the front page. You don't have to click on anything. Click on that. It will bring up the different kinds of forms, and soil is number 1 on the left-hand side. Click on that. Or right, I think it's just a download underneath it. So this is what the form looks like. Your name will go in these 2 spots. This line will be identification of the sample ID. So you can put garden, pasture, left side, right side, whatever you want, trees, whatever you want. S3C is the box that we use. That gives us major minerals, trace minerals, CEC, collection capacity, the basic things that we want to know for our area. Okay? Sign, date. My name goes here. X email box, which is right there. And they already have my email. They already know me. And they will email me a copy as soon as they have finished the test. So I may get my copy before you do. But that gives me time to look it over and calculate what you need, okay? So that's the form you want. When you get the test, this is what it's going to look like. Since I have 2 of this, I'm going to let you pass this around so you guys can all look at
Maybe I
it.
should make a couple copies of it.
If you want to, you can do that.
And grab it, let's copies, then we can.
Yeah, I don't know.
So when we look at this, the first category that we have is organic matter. You want it right down 2 to 5% is what we want to see. Now occasionally, I will get one that says 17% organic matter. That tells me this is a raised bed. They have thrown in all kinds of organic matter. They put in peat moss and cow manure and all these things. And at 17% organic matter, it has not digested. This sounds wonderful. This is not wonderful, okay? You have put in a lot of good materials, but it's not ready to plant in because it has not got it in the form that is going to nourish the plant. It has not digested the materials to a form the plant can use. So when you see 17% organic matter and you think that's wonderful, it's not.
So what did you say the organic matter should be at? 2 to 5.
2 to 5. So when you see that, you're really, if that's in the spring and you want to plant in that, then you're going to have to do a lot of microbes and nitrogen in order to get that plant growing, because you have to break down that organic matter into humus. Okay, then the humus can feed the plant, but the organic matter is raw materials. Okay? So we go to the next two boxes. We have weak grade and strong grade phosphorus. In the first box, the figure that we would like to see is 35, and we see 22, and we see 26 in the next box. 26 is what's in reserve. It hasn't digested yet, but we need 35 minimum. So that means that we need to add some soft rock phosphate. Soda Springs is the best source for soft rock phosphate. They found out the hard rock phosphate that they recommended for years was highly contaminated with heavy metals, so they no longer recommend that product. Okay? So, what we want to see is a digestion process, and when we put on a new material, we need to get that digested. So we want to use the Spectrum with mycorrhizal product that for shortening is Spectrum plus MYCRO. Spectrum and mycorrhizal, and a carbon source, whether that's fish or Nutrineed or a humate of some sort. And because you have the food to feed the microbes, you don't have enough organic matter, so therefore there's nothing to keep the microbes alive. So we have to have a source. So the Pacific Grove fish, which I brought some samples of that today. These are a couple of samples. He has with biochar. This is a really, really good product to really get the soils going when you're really pouring organic matter. And the oceanic, which fish, crab, and shrimp, and a few other things like clams that he has that available. So that's a really good carbon source to feed those microbes. So as we build the phosphorus, phosphorus is really, really important for root growth. So 35 is a minimum, but we can have it up to the high hundreds, okay? This is a thing that higher is better because it gives us a big reserve for building really good roots. And nutrients are going to be in a phosphate bond to go into the root stem. So, also the soft rock phosphate digests over a 5-year period. So you apply heavily the first year, and you're going to have a lighter assimilation, a little more the second year, third year is highest, and then it starts going down. So about every 4 years, you want to do an adequate amount of rock phosphate to keep that rock phosphate material in the soil at an adequate level. The weak brain, the strong brain, when we have good digestion, should be very close to the same number. So maybe we have 200 in each box. Okay, that's what we want to see. Because as the acids from the roots break it down, it will have a continuous supply for what they need through the growing season. Okay? Then we're going to skip over the middle, and you see this pH. Again, the only time we worry about pH if it's above 9 or below 6.4. When you get below 6.4, you start picking up heavy metals. So then we want to address where those heavy metals are coming from and making sure that pH stays in a working range that is not going to cause issues. Because when you get You know, blueberry growers say, oh, you want a pH of 5, right? You're picking up aluminum, cadmium, lead, all kinds of heavy metals. You don't want that. They tell you how wonderful blueberries are for you. Are they really? I don't think so. I personally can't eat them out of the store. I grow my own and I'm fine, and I don't lower the pH that low. When you're doing microbes will make the pH for that plant at the root hairs what it needs to be. Do not try to do this yourself. When you are forcing something, you're going to off-balance things you don't have any clue about. So just add more microbes, add more organic matter when you want to grow blueberries, and they'll be fine. But it's really important to keep the blueberry mulched with organic matter and apply the microbes monthly. Okay, the next 4 boxes. Well, we have the cation exchange capacity. Cation exchange capacity, the CEC, is the ability of the soil to hang on to nutrients. The lower the values, the more sandy it is. So when you see those 6s and 5s, we got gravel. And Florida is a lot like that. This is a Florida one. And so it gives us an idea of how open that soil is. And so that means we have to fertilize a little at a time and slowly build that, but we have to fertilize often because there's nothing there to hang on to those nutrients. They're going to be going right through. So we don't want to be doing things heavy. We just want to be doing it every week so we can build up those layers. With using the fish, this is oil-based, it will cling onto every particle of that gravel and it will start building organic matter and humus. So it's really good to do that weekly until you can build that up. It's not something that you can hurry when you have this low of a CEC. Around here, 12 to 18 is usually what I see. We usually have some organic matter unless it's a new house and if fill, then there won't be too much and you have to start slow. But that gives us a range.
So what's the range you want on that?
Well, anywhere from 18 to 22 is very adequate. You know, if you have clays, then it will be higher. And then, we have more sandy soils here, so 18 to 22 is usually fine. When you have clays, you could be up to 30. And that tells you you've got really, really tight soils. So it gives you a hint about your soil structure. Then you have K, which is potassium, Mg, which is magnesium, and Ca is calcium. Those are in a box. That means as you do one, you will change the others. Okay? So in this particular one, the calcium is too high. Calcium should never be above 80. And in our area, 75 is what we shoot for. The potassium should be 7.5. So you see the potassium is really low. Potassium is your fruiting mineral. It is also your protection against insects in the heat. But in the heat, the roots will not pick up enough potassium to keep the bugs off. That's why August they get mites on the wine grapes because it's too hot and it's not picking up enough potassium. So at that point, we foliar feed potassium and you will not have insect problems. Okay? So
I missed what that's supposed to be at.
7.5.
7.5 for the potassium.
What does it mean to foliar feed?
Put it with water, spray the leaves while it's cool. Then it goes right into the plant.
So in August, that usually means in the evening.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
unless you want to get up at 4 in the morning.
It's best to do in the evening. You want it to be under 80 degrees, but if the sun has almost set, you can do it over 80 degrees because it'll still accept it. So you do it in the evening and it has all night to absorb. So the evening is best because some days it's hard to get up before it's 80. So the next one is magnesium. We're in a high magnesium area. We tend to run 18 to 22 in this area. When you get out to Pasco and Burbank, I've seen it as high as 35. That is a serious, serious problem. That means even if it's sand, the surface tension is so tight that the water doesn't want to go in. And I worked with a farmer out there with 1,000 acres, and the only solution we had was to run calcium through his irrigation 24/7, because that way there was enough calcium to keep the plant healthy, but the amount of money it would take to put enough on the soil was not there, okay? Because he was 33 on his particular farm. So that worked out perfectly. The plants grew and everything was healthy and no disease issues by doing that. And calcium I'd like to see in our area at 75. When you are in other areas and you have a different makeup of these things, you could be as low as 60 and still be healthy. But it depends on your CECs and the figures of all these other things in balance. So everything has to be in balance.
So you're going for like a ratio?
A minimum of 60, our area is 75 because of the calcium magnesium ratio.
Okay.
When you have magnesium so high, you've got to raise the calcium higher in order to have the 6-to-1 ratio.
Okay.
So it
That's
depends
6
on
to 1.
what's there. You know, you have to juggle things to make everything balance. Okay, I want you to drop straight down. Boron. Boron is always the first thing you address because boron activates calcium. So we got lots of calcium, but we have no boron to activate it. So it is not doing a single thing. It has a threshold. It is a unique nutrient. It doesn't work at all until it hits 1.2. So we like to see at least 1.5, which will be about 6 to 7 pounds of solubor per acre. Solubor is a 20% boron product. 20 meal team borax is a 10% boron product. So if it's a home garden, you'll probably use a 20 meal team. Okay.
The stuff
So-
you get at the laundry section.
Right.
So that's
It's
the borax.
always mixed with
that's
lots
the
of
borax.
water. It's always sprayed on so that you get an even coating. If you put too much boron in one area at one time, you can sterilize the soil. So it can be used as a weed killer in your driveway. Okay?
What about the
It can be used for anthills and different other things too. A little sugar with boron usually takes care of anthills. So boron is an interesting thing because it has lots of uses on both ends. So again, the application has to be moderate. Like I said, you can do 6 to 7.
I'm like, oh no, so I take a picture, send it to Delores. Delores says, boron, you gotta give it to boron.
All aphids is boron.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, so I did boron and then the spectrum and stuff. And she said, you should notice a difference in about 2 weeks. 2 weeks?
To put in half of the amount to make sure that you're getting your area sprayed, and then fill it up again and do it again, so that you don't have one spot that has too much. Okay? Okay,
You
Can I
said,
tell a boron story?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Couple times
So your
ago.
peaches and nectarines, soft fruit, all your soft fruit need a little more boron than other fruit trees. They just have a little higher need. And tip dieback on your peach trees and your apricot trees and is a sign that you have a boron deficiency, so watch for that. Peach leaf curl is calcium, and again, you have your calcium and your boron that need to be working together. So those are some of the things that you can watch for those kind of trees, because they're picky.
Now, you mentioned for boron a minimum of probably 1.2, but you said 1.5.
1.5 is the working range, because of course it's gotta be used up by your calcium.
Okay,
And when you see calcium this high and boron that low, it's gonna suck that boron down pretty fast.
okay.
So that first year, this gentleman's going to have to apply boron probably 4 times in a year. And I did a lot of research on boron when I was having this problem with my peach trees. And nobody could really answer me about the highest level.
Okay, that was
Okay.
what I was gonna ask.
And I said, there's nothing in the agronomy books. None of these scientists I call have a clue. And I'm going, okay. So then I just started calling agronomists in different areas of the country. And I said, what is your range that you have or seeing in your soil test for boron? So you can have 2 to 2.5 and it doesn't seem to be a big issue. Now the apple guys in Wenatchee said if they get above 2, they seem to have a problem with storage for whatever reason. I don't know what the correlation is there. So between 1.5 and 2 seems to be fine. So that's kind of the range we want to keep our boron at. Okay, then hop over to the left where it says 2. This is parts per million of nitrogen, lower left. Okay, we want to see 35 parts per million.
And
And-
only 2?
Yes, 2
Wow.
parts per million. I said you can spit better than that. So typically we use calcium nitrate. And the reason we use calcium nitrate is it's a bonded nitrogen to calcium. It will not evaporate or dissipate into the ground. It will stay there until the roots touch it, and then it will release to the plant. Okay, so it's a very, very efficient product and very cost effective. And the neighbor guy who has commercial cherries was spraying urea in the fall. And I'm going, those trees are really green with nitrogen and you're spraying more urea. And I thought, what in the world is the thought behind this? So then came my Acres USA magazine. And there was a nice little article. And it said, another issue results from the iterated use of urea ammonium nitrate, agriculture's favorite fertilizer. When ammonia gas is given off by the soil, a proton of acidity, H plus, is left behind. Recently in eastern Washington, yields were falling despite fertilizer use. The problem? The pH fell. The pH fell from near neutral 7 towards pH 5. At pH 5, the ubiquitous soil contaminant aluminum is mobilized, and aluminum stunts the growth of roots. There's the answer. So, they're trying to control, evidently, soil pH by using this product. And I thought, it's really a funny way to do it, but anyway, kind of explained why they were doing that. So the calcium nitrate, I usually do 65 pounds to the acre. And that might have to be done, on something this bad, 2 or 3 times a year, depending on, watching the plants and how they grow. You get to sulfur. Oh my goodness. It needs to be 20. We have 7. Now, most of the fertilizers that we would tend to use, like the potassium, we're going to add some potassium, it's potassium sulfate. So we're going to get some sulfur there. The magnesium, we can use a magnesium sulfate or a magnesium oxide, depending on usually our sulfur, and we're really low on sulfur, so we can use sulfur. The Pacific Grow is high in sulfur, so we can use that for sulfur. So we can build up our sulfur by some of the other fertilizers that we're using, plus the addition of fish. Manganese. You need manganese sulfate. Make sure the fertilizer dealer is giving you the right product, because here we have plenty of magnesium, and we do not want to take home magnesium sulfate. We want manganese sulfate. It has a lot of enzymatic actions that it promotes. It makes things ripen more quickly. It's a really, really, really important nutrient. I had ripe tomatoes in May this year. Lots of people don't get them until August and September because the manganese is very low. Okay, so it's a really important nutrient. Iron needs to be in the same ballpark with manganese. We don't want manganese above iron. We also don't want iron really high. Iron overload disease in humans is called hemochromatosis. It causes the organs to turn to mush. And doctors have no way of controlling it except pulling blood all the time until you're a porcupine. It's horrible. So manganese controls iron. And in a plant, it will not allow the nutrients to be pulled to the top of the plant if there's too much iron. So we want to watch those levels with them being the same ballpark. If iron is 200, then we're going to have to up that manganese more in order to control that iron. Okay? Because there have been some areas where the iron was really out of bounds.
So about what should that be at?
If iron is 20, if we're 15,
Also, it just depends on what
You
the other
have to
one
be
is,
close
so you're
to the
balancing.
same.
Okay.
okay, close to the same with iron being a touch higher.
Okay.
Copper, we want to see 1.5 to 2. Copper again helps with fungus contamination, fungus in plants, in humid areas and things of that sort, and good deep color. People would argue with me that a lighter leaf is iron deficiency, when it's really copper or manganese. There was a doctor that was arguing with me, and I said, we have plenty of iron in the soil. It's the copper and the manganese we don't have. And so you'll get a deep, rich color. And like I said, it will protect against fungus attacks. And then, of course, we've done the boron. So that is our soil test. Any questions?
Yes. You mentioned that the acidity level should be.
You're not going to play big games with your acidity. You're going to do the microbes monthly. You're going to mulch with peat moss, leaves, things of that sort that have an acid base themselves, but lots of microbes, and it's sufficient calcium, because calcium is the cell integrity for your blueberries. And you want to make sure that you have plenty of potassium because that's your fruiting. Okay? And you apply your potassium in the fall, so it's there. You actually, need to do it late summer, because your fruit for next year is set on, the ability is set on in that late summer. So like with the cherry trees, 2 pounds of potassium sulfate per acre is after harvest, but they're early. So your blueberries tend to be a little later, so we should try getting that on in July and August. So you have that push for fruiting for the next year. Because we have to remember, we're nourishing for next year's crop as we're taking off this year's crop. But keeping the mulch on top of those roots, because they're shallow, and doing those microbes is really important. And then the microbes will make the pH right for the plant. Okay? Blueberries are a bugger because we're hot and dry.
Right.
We don't have the kind of humus and moisture, and you need to keep them moist. But that's why I don't use peat moss. I use cocoa fiber. And cocoa fiber, when you hydrate it, will be like coffee grounds. And so it's a very nice, friable product. It won't stick to you when you're handling it. And so you can just continue to put that on as the season goes on. And one block is like this, and I throw it in a big container, and you'll have probably 10 gallons of product. And it just fluffs up to this nice light. And it's really light. It's about this thick, and I get them from Concentrates in Portland. and they're easy to handle. You get a bale of peat moss, and trying to get that thing to hydrate takes you a week, and then it's stringy, and trying to handle it, and the cocoa fiber is so much better. And cocoa fiber is a recyclable product, peat moss is not. Because they're cutting down those things in Florida all the time and recycling the coconut trees. They have to cut those fronds every week because they have big thorns on them. When I went down there, I'm going, ooh, those things are nasty. And so they have people going out and cutting off the lower ones that are starting to droop so it doesn't fall on anybody. So they have a really good recycling program for the whole thing with those palm trees. But the coconut fiber is really good because they're harvesting lots of those, and it's a recyclable product, and it's quite valuable for gardening. And they make it these nice little cubes and rectangles and easy to handle. They're light. A couple dozen is not hard to handle, like dragging one of those bales around. You know.
So cocoa fiber, that's all you put on a regular basis for, that's all you would, is the cocoa
Well,
fiber?
you could, like I said, you can do leaves in the fall. When leaves come down, shredded leaves are really good. You can do some composted steer manure, whatever, is good. But do some of the cocoa fiber because it is more acidic and it does hold on to the moisture and keep everything growing well. Okay?
We've been using pine bark mulch, is that,
Yeah, that should be all right.
that would be, so we can even mix that in with?
Yeah, I don't, the only thing about pine bark is some of the oils are not compatible with some of the microbes because it's an evergreen and has those pitchy oils. So that's the only thing, and I can't answer that for you because being raised in Alaska, I hate evergreen trees.
There's a bias.
Oh, big bias. I swore there'd never be another one in my yard. We had those needles and we had a looped carpet, and you sit there and pull them out with tweezers. Oh yeah,
You were done.
horrifying. Yes. So I just know that the pitchiness can be an issue,
Okay.
and so that's not something that I prefer. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, do you have one first?
I just was gonna ask about zinc, I forgot. You were saying-
Zinc is 2.5. And with using the fish oil, you'll have plenty of zinc, so it's not something you ever have to put on.
Is that the oceanic?
Yes.
Okay.
Where do you get, when you say your fertilizer supplier, like where would I'm your typical like Home Depot gal that I'm merging out.
Never go there. Okay,
So show me the way.
I'm distributed for Pacific Grove, and I usually have plenty in bulk. They are in Raymond, Washington, where he is also from. He and Jim were partners. And again, Concentrates is carrying their products down there, and they will have of the different sizes, like a gallon, 2 gallons, 5 gallons, 2.5 gallons, I think is what they carry. So they will have the smaller containers at Concentrates in Portland. Portland is a fantastic source for all of your organic fertilizers in smaller sizes. We get our calcium carbonate down there, and when I went to this farm seminar and they had this lady scientist who was raving about quality and micronal lime, and I'm sitting there going, this is a high pH thing, and we have high pH soils, and what the heck am I supposed to do with this? How am I supposed to use this product that's so fantastic?
Right.
Because for years we were told to use the calcium sulfate, which is gypsum, and but they brought her in for a reason. So I started thinking about it. Well, the pH of the fish is 3.5, so you put the fish together with the calcium carbonate, stir, and you have this nice foamy mess that you can dilute with water and put it out there, and it assimilates each other. And my son has great fun doing this because he has these foaming buckets going all over. So that works really, really well because the fish, being the lower pH, helps assimilate that calcium carbonate for our soils because it's a high quality product. And that's the other issue I want to bring out is MSDS sheets. These sheets are available for each product. And what this is a sheet that you must ask for that will tell you the heavy metal contamination. Because some mines are contaminated with heavy metals, maybe because of runoff from another type of mine or some industrial contamination, you have no way of knowing. So it could be a natural product, might be even certified organic, but it could have heavy metals. That's why we went to the soft rock phosphate from the hard rock years ago, 25 years ago, because of contamination. So you can ask for MSDS sheets, and that way you know that you're getting a product that you don't have to worry about heavy metals. And even if there is some, as long as you keep your pH up, again, you're not going to pick it up because it's impossible to pick those up at a higher pH. So 6.4 is as low as we want to see that pH. 6.8 to 7.2 is really what we call optimum. But in our area, because of alkaline water, alkaline soils, seeing 8's not an issue. Okay? Like I said, the pH, the microbes keep the pH at the roots, where we want them. So don't try to play the pH up and down game, because all you do is cause issues. The marijuana growers are famous for this. They like pH up and pH down and pH up and pH down, and manipulate the plant something terrible and make it weak. And I argued with these guys for a period of time about this. And they're impossible because they think they're kind of like wine guys. Well, we have to do it the way France does it, otherwise it won't work. They're afraid to experiment and find out for themselves. I've never seen such a mess. And the wine grapes tend to be very, very calcium deficient, and they have tons of disease problems, and they lose a third of their wine grapes every year, and they don't care. Okay?
They just plan on that.
And I just no longer talk to them. The last guy I did a soil test for was in Grandview. And I did the soil test and went out there and looked at the plants. And he says, well, we like to see them stressed because they're supposed to get the first fruit. And I said, well, they're stressed and they're pretty well going to be dead by next year because there's no nutrients. And they just have this mindset and they don't think beyond it. And pretty much there was nothing going on the next year because there's nothing to live on. And why is a stressed plant producing a superior product? If you feel stressed, are you producing a superior product? Or did you just want to kill somebody? We have to think about that. A stressed cow does not produce more milk. So why does a stressed plant produce better? It doesn't make good sense. If you are feeding that plant to optimum, it's going to produce more. Under the biological farming program with Bruce Tanio, he finally got someone in California that would grow grapes under his program. And typically they give them very little water, and like you said, stress the plant and all the things they do. So this gentleman planted these starts, and in 18 months they produced 7 tons per acre. You can talk to all the wine growers in this area, and 1.5 to 2 tons is as much as they get. And they're afraid to get more. Oh, will the plants hold it? Will this happen? Will that happen? These plants were perfectly healthy. They had the structure, the strength in the vines to do that. And they even thinned it some. Okay? The next year they had 14 tons per acre.
Wow.
Well, how more efficient is that to have 14 tons per acre than to have 25 acres of 2 pounds per acre? But that's what they look for because they're so closed-minded. They're afraid to experiment. They're afraid to think for themselves. And I think it's really sad when farmers do this.
Could have a fourth of the size of the vineyards around here and still be producing more than they are now.
Exactly. My thing to farmers, you own this place, you're paying the bills on this place, so why do you ask somebody how to run your crops? why aren't you researching enough to know how to do it yourself? Why do you hire somebody to tell you how to do this? I don't understand that. I have never had a field man. I mean, when our field man, the only thing he did was come out and check and make sure that everything looked acceptable. Like the first year we moved to Moses Lake, we grew pinot beans. We'd never grown pinot beans, but we were moved in April and we had to have a crop. It was middle of June, and there was wells that had to be fixed and repaired, and so it was like middle of June. Okay, what can we grow? So pinot beans. So we got a contract for pinot beans. And so the guy would come, through periodically and take a look at the field and say, everything looks great. He didn't really ever give us any specific advice. We were doing it organically. And we had a neighbor guy that had grown beans, and he said the best thing you can do with beans is you water everything once over, which took 3 days, and then he said you turn it off for 4 days. And he said, this is how you handle beans. And we had some of the highest yield in the county, and the beans were excellent quality. And we did beans the next year, and we put in a microbial package, so there was no fungus issues in the ground, which these guys all freak out about doing beans over beans, and have fungus issues because they're killing all the beneficial bacteria. And again, we had extremely quality crops. When we moved from Moses Lake to Walla Walla, we'd been there 7 years. And as we were unpacking, I found out that there was a 5-gallon bucket of pinto beans. Now, this is 8 years old. And I'm going, wonder how good those are. Now, you can go to the store and you can buy some beans that you can soak for 3 days and they're still hard.
Mm-hmm.
These you could soak for an hour and cook them, and they were soft and delicious and nummy. The difference between store-bought beans and our beans was incredible. I never really cared for beans until we grew our own.
Right.
But because they would cook and be soft and nutritious and flavorful, and wow, this is cool. So there was a huge big difference while you're doing things organically. But you need to be able to think and experiment and research yourself, and to learn to know these things, learn to look at your plants. When your leaves don't look right, why? What's going on here? What do I need to do? And be able to figure this out and correct it when you see it. Don't depend on, some neighbor to tell you what chemical spray or whatnot that you need to use, because usually it's just a nutrient. When you get blotchy leaves, it's, can be copper or manganese or combination thereof. But you look for your trace minerals. But always boron's first, calcium second. Those are the first two. All your trace minerals right on the back of calcium. So if you've not got boron and calcium working, then the rest of this isn't going to get picked up. So you need to know what order you're working at. Okay? Okay. So we talked about MDSS. Okay. So this year was a revelation. I've known for a while that the Yakima River was getting worse and worse. This year was awful. I know that my soils were correct. I've run my soil test, I've done my microbes, and the soil just kept getting tighter and tighter. And we had weeds 6 foot tall, and they were sharp as knives. And I'm going, what is this issue? And I had beans growing that had brown leaves, and I thought it was odor spray. I called USDA out here. I was furious. What the heck is going on here? I've got fruit trees look like they've been burned. I've got these beans that are looking terrible. And then Jim Bracken, who's owner of Pacific Grove, shows up with Adam. And they talk to me about the Vortex water machine. And I've looked at the technology for a number of years, but I wasn't happy with the quality. And so he answered my 3 questions simply the way I wanted them answered, and hooked up a Vortex machine on our farm. And I think we have a picture here somewhere. Okay, right here is the hookup, okay? Within 2 days, our soils were loose and friable, and the weeds that we couldn't pull out before, you could flick out with your fingers. My strawberries, which had shown a calcium deficiency with brown edges on their leaves, that was gone, and they doubled in size within that first week. And the beans that had brown leaves on it were regrowing new green leaves within that 2 to 3 day period. And I went, oh my goodness. At that point, I'm going, we have to do this on the house. Now, I really didn't think that it was gonna make that much difference at the house. Yeah, we got our own well, we've got a filter on it, we got a water softener, you know.
Right.
And we have the well house behind the house, we got our house, and then we have the barns out here. And all of that we put in 16 years ago. It's heavy wall PVC, and they say nothing clings to those pipes. Well, I go out to milk the goats, and these tanks are disgusting. And I'm going, what is this? So I'm dumping these tanks, and I'm washing them up with Clorox, thinking, where is this coming from? Because they say nothing clings to PVC, right? And so the third day, I'm kind of walk out there and peek at the water bucket because, and it's just pristine. It's like diamonds. And I'm going, oh my goodness, that was in the pipes? I couldn't believe my eyes. I really, really couldn't. After that, you saw things changing rapidly. This water is so active that it really starts detoxing your body. You open up the dishwasher, and it's so bright and clean. You thought your glasses were clean? I'll give it a week or two. They are so clean that it's just startling when you open up the dishwasher and the stainless steel is shiny and these glasses are so bright that you can't believe it. That house was a total disaster when we moved in 16 years ago, and the amount of mineral buildup in this one toilet was horrendous. My husband has tried chopping it and scrubbing it, and whatever, and we don't care anymore. It took about a month and went, he goes in there, he's going, do you see this? So as we've been using this water, we've seen more and more things happen. I had a washcloth. I have a second bathroom that doesn't get used a whole lot, but I had a lot of company coming, and so I went in there and pulled all the towels and washcloth out and washed them. I went to put this washcloth back in, and I went to set it next to the one that was in the cupboard and went, it's 4 shades lighter.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going, oh my goodness. So we have a picture of that too. You just keep seeing these things. So I have friends that have been very ill with different health problems over the years. And just a few glasses of this water started detoxing their bodies and pulling garbage out, heavy metals. That was one of the questions that I asked Adam. I said, what does it taste like? And he says, well, it tastes different to different people. And I knew exactly what that meant. I don't know that he knew what that meant, but it means it's detoxing you. If you have heavy metals, you will taste heavy metals. If you have different other things, it'll taste differently to you. As your body is cleansed, it will become a sweeter taste. There was one Sunday it tasted like vanilla ice cream all day. I went, I was packing my lips all day. I have no idea what that one was. But I have a friend who's been so deathly ill for 20 years, and it is just pouring garbage off your body. So this has been a fascinating journey. Having clean, active water is so important because the Yakima is so now contaminated that it's killing our soils, our plants, and our microbes. So people in town with chlorinated water, if they're going to irrigate their gardens, they need to let it sit out in the sun at least to dissipate some of that. But Adam has setups for hoses, whole house systems, shower, whatever, all kinds of different kinds of
So
hookups.
what exactly does it do? Is it
I printed off materials for you guys to read because it is
It's
hard to
magic.
explain exactly, but this does give a really good explanation of it. I just happen to have a new book that I got from Acres USA, and it just happens to have a chapter on Vortex Water. So I printed this off, which gives a nice, simple instruction about it.
Structured water.
So is this a machine that you can hook up to your system that creates
Yes.
this? Is this-
Did you bring one in? Yes, you did.
Says interdimensional visual.
This is a whole house system.
what?
That's the whole house.
So you just put that in your pipe?
You connect it in wherever the inlet is. Ours is connected in the pump house just after the, what is it called? The pressure tank. Now feel. You prepared. Little bugger's heavy.
Does it need electricity or does the water just run through it?
No electricity, no filter, no upkeep.
Nothing?
So there's nothing to change?
Nope.
or-
You just,
And
So it's
wow.
it lasts like
How long does it last, Adam? Should last a long time.
Decades.
Yeah.
okay.
So
Oh,
you can put that even like irrigation water through that?
Absolutely.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yes. So it depends on the size of your pipes. This is a house unit. You know, it has smaller inlet and
Right.
outlet.
oh wow.
And
Looks
so
like a
whatever
muffler.
size you need, you can manufacture.
Huh.
You can manufacture whatever size?
Yes.
We have them on pipes as large as 12 inches.
Oh, wow.
That would be a pipe.
and then you have one for your whole farm that's like 3 or 4 times that big?
Yes.
Yes, a 4
The
inch.
one for the farm, is that a 3 inch or a 4 inch?
4.
4 inch. Yeah. And the farm unit is right here. See, this is our setup right here.
Right, okay.
Okay.
With the black,
Yeah.
okay. So it goes in through there and then disperses
Right through the whole farm.
through, wow.
And that was just a total fascinating thing. And to see things change that quickly.
Right.
And to see those strawberries go
Huh.
and perfect leaves.
Cause yeah, I can relate to exactly what you're saying, and my soil is nowhere near what yours is, cause I haven't been working on it as long. But I was getting issues and it was like, where is this coming from?
It's the
Because I
contamination of
am,
water.
you know,
Yeah,
I've
we're all
been
struggling to
stressed
do
and
what's
it's
right.
like-
Frustrating.
And the water's killing us. Yes. It is really, really frustrating because the contamination of the water is just killing us.
That's amazing.
This is our farm unit right here.
Oh, okay.
This goes
So
to
there's
our
somebody that
acres.
could come and like see what type of system would,
Right there.
that's you?
This is a house unit.
That's why I see
The whole house, and this is our farm unit.
Wow.
This is a big, big farm unit.
So, it's Adam, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So Adam, what does the farm one run?
Depends on the line size,
Okay,
but for 3 inches, 4,500.
okay,
4 inches, 6,
6,
and they go up.
okay.
12 inch is 18. But the nice thing is this is a one-time thing.
Right.
It's not, you're not filtered, you're not
Right.
replacing things like that. And the other nice thing about it is that it's mitigating the ill effects of the water that you're doing.
Right.
It's doing it naturally. It's doing it through motion dynamics. Actually, it's using motion to change the chemistry and the electricity, like cation exchange capacity. All of those things are actually enhanced, and it's so some of the payoffs is actually greater crop production.
Right.
You actually grow more, you get higher delivery, of nutrients. You actually get higher delivery of water. Therefore, you can use actually less. You can cut down your inputs. You also cut down the amount of water that you use. You talked. Your soil was compact. We all say in past tense was compacted beforehand.
Right.
And
The thing that I noticed was when we turned off the irrigation water, we're using our house water, the soil is restored to beautiful, friable soil. So I knew it was the water. I
Right.
just didn't know what in the world to do about it until Adam showed up. So
So you
this
have a
has
system
been
on your farm
huge.
and on your home.
Yes.
So you're two separate ones.
The
Yeah.
home one
Yeah.
was
So this is,
how much was the home one again?
so you could have this in place of
it's,
like
it's based
water
on
softener.
line size.
No
It doesn't-
water softener.
whatever size line you have. So
This
typically a home
after-
Because we
has
were
a
looking-
1 inch or a 3/4 inch
we had a
line.
house up
That
here
would be
and,
for a home.
you know, the water here is so hard, and we're looking at options. It's like, okay, well, there's the water softener. Well, we don't want to be putting salt and all that stuff in. So we're like, okay, that's not an option. And so then there was something else that was a magnetic thing, and it's
The
like, well, that
magnetic-
doesn't really
The
do what
magnetic
it's
thing
supposed
doesn't
to
really
do.
work that well.
Right, and it's not doesn't
No.
really do what we're trying to do anyway.
Exactly.
And
So-
so we're just like, well, I guess we won't do anything because there isn't anything.
Yeah,
that
it's a
sounds
good
like
option.
This is what we're
Now, the other thing is
Right?
that it is making the minerals in the water so they are benefiting you.
Right.
And
So you can
the last
ingest
few
them or
weeks, I'm
digest them.
going, my muscles are really tight. You know, it's mineralizing me and tightening up my muscles, and I'm going, why am I so stiff and sore?
Right.
It's like exercising because you're getting those minerals in. It is just flat amazing, and it tastes like silk. And your skin is so soft. I said, you pet yourself because you're so soft. And showering in it, you know, you don't need anything else. You just stand there and get soft. It's so nice because when you have highly mineralized water, you tend to be a little rough.
Yeah.
And it makes your clothes a little rough, because like that washcloth, it was so soft with the Vortex water, and it was so bright. And I'm feeling the tube and looking at the tube going, oh my goodness,
And that was just
So-
one wash?
I think,
one.
I think I was confused. The left is the before vortex and the right is the after the vortex? Is that before, after?
Yeah, that.
Yes,
this-
that's correct.
that's-
Before-
I got it totally reversed. I was
You
like,
can see how
oh,
bright
that
this one is
must be the
compared to.
after.
That's before and that's after.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
See how much more dull it is.
That was just one washing.
And
That was what blew me away. One washing.
Right.
And went to put it in the cupboard and went, oh my goodness, I'm
Is
gonna
it
have
the
to wash
oxygen
everything in the
that's
cupboard now.
happening?
that's one of the things that happens. Oxygen is liberated through this motion dynamics. It releases, the oxygen is all present, but the oxygen is occupied by other molecular connections. It has an ability to break it, therefore liberating the oxygen availability of the entire body. That also impacts microbes that are anaerobic, for example. It changes the environment.
It's putting the
Thoroughly.
oxygen back in the soil so the microbes are more active. Because anaerobic soil is unhealthy soil. And then you have disease factors. We have root rot and different things of that sort. So it enhances every aspect of this. Now I'm so excited for spring I can hardly stand it, right?
I would be
You
too.
know, because I want to play with this more.
Right.
The chickens. The chicken water is so vile and disgusting. I finally said I'm not using them anymore because trying to keep the green out of them, and this is house water,
Right.
is awful in the summertime. I threw them in 20 gallons of Clorox water for a week. And so I just started using these big pans. And they're drinking this down every day. And I'm going, you gotta be kidding me. That pan is like a waterer that would last for a week.
Right.
And they're drinking this pan down every day. And they're really going after this water. And I'm going, I have never seen chickens drink water like this.
Right.
And you just see the difference in the animals. And the goat tank that I had, which was a plastic, there's evidently some stuff deep in the pores. I finally pulled it out of there and I left it without water in it after scrubbing it for a week, and I went and got new 5-gallon paint buckets, new ones from, the paint buckets are heavier weight. And I put those out for the goats, and they're just sucking this down like gangbusters. And I have, it's cold weather, my goats are still milking well. And with the temperatures going up and down, and in fact, they've come up on their milk. And this is really, really amazing to see these changes. And, egg production will go up, your milk production will go up, the milk quality is better. They talked about one gentleman who doubled the amount of cattle that he had on his pasture because it was producing so much better. So all of these things are all positive things. And like I said, I can hardly wait for spring. So.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Revelatory.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Credit.
Yes.
Have we sufficiently blown you away?
Pretty much.
Yes.
Potassium and
NPK tells you nothing,
thank you.
okay?
That
Tells
was
you
it.
nothing.
Darn it, I thought I was doing so good.
Yes. This is why I use Midwest, because it puts everything out so you can really see what you're doing. Somebody sent, they had blueberries. They sent it into WSU. It cost them, I don't know, $150 or some ridiculous thing. And they sent them back NPK. I said, what good did that do you?
Could have done that for
This is
$5.
$25.50.
For this full.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
$25.50. This is so worth it.
Wow. And then when we get the results, I would like step-by-step help as I learn
It's not a problem.
internalize
Well,
this.
it's like I said,
That's
it's
why we
like
go get milk.
Dolores.
Dolores,
She's always
this
getting
is not an
texts from
issue,
me.
I do this all the time. Most of this I know off the top of my head, I don't have to do calculations. Oh, the other one thing is, if calcium is really deficient, we never do more than 1,000 pounds per acre at one application. If it's really, really deficient, then we do 1,000 pounds, we wait 6 weeks, use the microbes for digestion, and then we wait 6 weeks and we do it again. So we don't want to overload the soil at one time with things like that. But all those parameters I know and I can tell you when you get your soil test so that you can do it correctly. And it's really good soil test as soon as the ground is able to do it, so you can start working on it if things are really out of balance. Your microbial action isn't going to start working, nor the fish, until 40 degrees. But there can be some breakdown of some things that can happen over the winter months that can be valuable. But then in the spring, you can start working at it actively.
So at this point right now, because I was about to calling it a big load of compost, probably some organic material, just
Okay,
load
what
it
is
up.
compost? And what is it going to do for you?
I don't know, it just sounds really good.
It sounds so wonderful. This one agronomist says, never touch compost again in your life. When we had the 110-acre farm, we had the City of College Place that brought me 45 truckloads of leaves. So I had a 1 acre compost pile. We had all these apple boxes and we had 45 truckloads of leaves. And I was monitoring it monthly. I was taking tests monthly to see how everything was working, so I could understand this whole process. And if you don't add minerals, you lose minerals in that breakdown of composting. But I made sure everything was perfect, and in the 3rd month, my calcium dropped 15%. And I went, oh my goodness, this is huge, because you think that you're composting to get more and you're getting less.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the problem with composting. If they have not added minerals, your pH of that product could be very calcium deficient. So why are you using this?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you use commercial compost, a lot of it is human waste with all kinds of medical drugs and other contaminants. If you're using compost from people's yards, you have all kinds of chemicals from weed and feed and sprays and all that stuff. So what are we getting? We don't know. That's why I don't recommend it. because you don't know what you're getting. Because all the compost that comes in those cute little bags at Home Depot is human waste from Seattle.
That's gross.
Oh, it is. And if it says soil, it's human waste from Seattle. And it's full of drugs. So we have to know our sources. We have to know what those things mean on those bags, because they'll keep changing the name so you don't know what it is. You know, one year they said biosolids, another year they said mill organic. I think they've now changed it to something else, because when people get knowledgeable, they just change the name so you don't know what you're getting. So that's why I like to look for our base materials. You're going to compost the leaves this fall, compost your own leaves. If you're going to use somebody else's leaves, make sure that you're putting enough calcium and fish and microbes and whatnot in there so that you actually have a product that's worth it in the spring. It's better to do your own cover crops for winter time and putting those minerals on and letting that cover crop enhance your soil. There's just so much misinformation and contamination out there that you need to know that. It's just one of those things that we're dealing with in this day and age. So shortcuts at Home Depot can be deadly. And beaver bark, oh my goodness. One friend bought all this stuff from beaver bark, couldn't grow one single thing in those raised beds. Another gentleman had problems, and they had, I think, 7 different products down there. And I said, go ask for the MSDS sheets. And I went over those sheets, and they would be so widely out of balance, like 1,200 parts per million of iron. You want to deal with that? Or this one would be way high in this and low in this, and I'm going, you don't want any of this. None of it. There was one product I said, you could probably use some of this for the bottom of your raised beds. Okay? But it's so much better to use the raw materials and mix it up yourself than have to fight with whatever horrible thing you're going to have in those mixes and then pay giant prices for it. And you'll still have to amend it. So what are you gaining? Nothing. It's just one more headache you have to deal with. So beaver bark is a problem.
No, when you say to use your own leaves, I have a huge sycamore tree, and I've heard those leaves don't compost. They don't break
Well,
down.
let me tell you something, that is a lie. I heard that too when I was milk-free water, and they just, oh, you can't compost those leaves. And so I composted those leaves, and we moved in that house, and we didn't know what all was there. But they had tried to remove a red bud azalea, and there was part of it still there that was on the side of the house. Well, that was kind of where I piled the leaves and put on the microbes and the calcium and everything. So the next spring, the neighbor lady calls me and she says, what in the world is growing next to your house? Well, that azalea bloomed. It was the most gorgeous thing you had ever seen on that side of the house. I had to walk out in there and see what it was. And that's where those leaves have been. So they composted fine. You just have to know how to do it. Okay?
Fish, how do you do it?
Oceanic.
Fish,
Oh,
microbials.
yeah, fish.
But make sure you have enough calcium, because again, you have to have enough calcium. You have to have enough nitrogen also. So the calcium nitrate to break those things down, and everything was fine. I love it when somebody says you can't do it, it's impossible.
It's always a challenge.
Damn it.
Yeah, exactly.
So remind me again, you mentioned these are all Pacific Grove products, and
The fish is Pacific Grove. These up here are Tanio products. These are called biocaps. Every fruit tree should have one of these every 6 months on a different side. These are PZ1000s, one of our foliars. The spectrum with the mycorrhizal is soil microbes. So this is 1 teaspoon to a gallon of water to spray the leaves. This is a teaspoon to a gallon of water for the microbes, plus a carbon like the fish, which is a tablespoon per gallon of water.
and you just put this in like a
This is 1
sprayer and
acre
just spray it.
of spectrum microbes. 1 acre. See how little that is? That covers 1 acre.
Wow.
Beneficial microbes. These are bio pellets. You can use these for house plants or starting plants. It has all of the nutrients in little bio pellets, so if you want to do hanging plants, house plants. My chiropractor's plant was so disgusting and vile, I couldn't stand it anymore. I brought Vortex Water and the bio pellets and fertilized this plant. I couldn't stand it anymore.
Yeah, like the one that's behind her right now.
So this is minerals in balance. And again, if you just want to raise bed, you do the bio pellets in this and the microbes, and you can shake this on top of your soil and everything's right in here. Okay? So we have something for raised gardens or pots and things for farms and big gardens, whatever you want.
And then you put calcium, a big one like that that's green. You can shake it on it. What is that one? Calcium.
Green.
The writing on the package is green. And it's big and it's white.
Well, that's calcium carbonate.
There, calcium carbonate.
That's calcium carbonate.
Don't have
And
that.
this little leaf sign, it was made for houseplants along with the bio pellets. And 10 or so years ago, my daughter-in-law had her baby in Pennsylvania. They had just moved there. She had a C-section. And my son calls me and he says, I need you to come out for a week and take care of her because I have to go back to work and I have to be out of town. And I had some eggplants, about 2 inches tall, on my kitchen table. So I spritzed them with this, and I get on the airplane and I'm gone for a week. I come back, oh, they're about like this. And I'm going, oh my. So I transplanted them. And this was March 15th when she was born, so it was the end of March when I got back. And we had a nice warm April, and the buggers are growing like gangbusters. So I planted them out, mid-late April. And then we had a late frost. And they were dead black sticks. And then I was really mad. And I for a few days. And I thought, well, I suppose I should go plant them out and see about getting some more plants. I went out there and they had resprouted green leaves and were growing. And I went, oh, well, that's cool. And they produced well. When you have that vitality, they will do this. I've had tomatoes freeze back and regrow. Okay. And that was my first experience with doing leaf sign and having that kind of a response. So it's a neat little product. It's just a spritz over the top of the leaves, and it gives it the vitality that it needs. So I had a lot of fun with it, with starting plants in the house and house plants. You can keep something blooming forever. In fact, I have that insane orchid that I think has been blooming for 2 months now. I've killed every orchid I've ever had in the house. And this thing is still blooming, and it just holds on to the blooms, and it just keeps doing it. And I'm going, is this supposed to be how they do work? Besides the Vortex Water, my little zits. It's great. So I'm pretty impressed. Because, like I said, I killed off many orchids faster than I could buy them.
Yeah, orchids are hard.
Yeah.
I've never tried.
I've
Did you
never
get
tried either,
their
but I've watched too many people
Number,
try it.
Oh, I go.
All right.
Okay.
This up.
All right.